My older brother, Liam, and I were always the odd ones out in our family. While our younger brother, Alex, was the golden child, showered with praise and opportunities, Liam and I were expected to quietly support him. Our parents, successful academics, viewed Alex's every achievement as a reflection of their own brilliance, often at our expense. Liam, a gifted but unassuming artist, found solace in his studio, while I, pursuing a career in forensic accounting, learned early on to be meticulously organized and keep my own counsel. The family dynamic shifted dramatically when Liam announced his engagement to Sarah, a kind and vibrant elementary school teacher he'd met through a local art community. Sarah saw Liam, not Alex's older brother, but as a talented individual in his own right, and she encouraged his artistic pursuits, something our parents had always subtly dismissed. Their wedding was set for a charming vineyard in Napa Valley, a place Liam had always dreamed of painting. Alex, however, seemed to view Liam's happiness as a personal affront. He had always been intensely competitive, especially with Liam, despite his own considerable accomplishments in tech. 3 weeks before the wedding, at a family dinner ostensibly to celebrate Liam and Sarah, Alex dropped a bombshell. He announced, with a smirk directed squarely at Liam, that his startup had secured a multi-million-dollar investment and that he was now a self-made millionaire, eclipsing even our parents' financial success. He then casually mentioned that he'd also purchased a sprawling estate in Malibu, perfect for his future family. The underlying message was clear. He was the true success story, and Liam's modest wedding was just a quaint sideshow. Sarah, sensing the tension, simply squeezed Liam's hand under the table. Liam, usually reserved, surprisingly stood up. "That's wonderful, Alex," he said, his voice calm, though a bit out of place for an engagement dinner. "Speaking of which, Sarah and I are really looking forward to our wedding next month." Alex just chuckled, raising his glass. "To new beginnings, eh, Liam? Some of us just start ours a little faster." The days leading up to Liam's wedding were filled with Alex's increasingly blatant attempts to steal the spotlight. He'd call our parents daily, detailing his extravagant purchases, a luxury sports car, a private jet membership, always ensuring Liam was within earshot. He even accidentally forwarded an email to the entire family, including Liam's vendors, detailing plans for his own lavish housewarming party, coincidentally scheduled for the weekend after Liam's wedding. Sarah, thankfully, remained unperturbed, her focus solely on their upcoming marriage. The wedding itself was beautiful, intimate, and precisely what Liam and Sarah wanted. Our parents, perhaps feeling a flicker of guilt, were surprisingly present and supportive, though Alex was conspicuously absent, claiming a last-minute business trip. His social media, however, showed him vacationing in Hawaii. It was a subtle act of defiance, but it didn't dim Liam's joy. He and Sarah were truly happy. A year later, Liam's art career began to take off. His landscape paintings, deeply influenced by the beauty of Napa, gained critical acclaim, leading to gallery showings and commissions. Sarah, meanwhile, had been promoted to lead teacher at her school. They were building a wonderful life, independent of our parents' expectations or Alex's shadow. Our parents, perhaps sensing their golden child drifting further from their grasp, decided to host a family reunion at Alex's new Malibu estate. Liam and Sarah, after some hesitation, agreed to attend. I, ever the observer, sensed an impending disaster and braced myself. The evening was a parade of Alex's inflated ego. He showed off his smart home, his infinity pool, his collection of high-end gadgets, constantly belittling Liam's artistic pursuits and Sarah's teaching career. "It's nice that some people can afford to pursue hobbies," he'd sneer, gesturing dismissively at Liam's portfolio, "but real success is about tangible assets." Dinner arrived, and our parents, ever eager to praise Alex, made a toast to his vision and entrepreneurial spirit. Then, just as the dessert was being served, Alex stood up, a smug grin plastered across his face. "Speaking of new beginnings," he announced, his voice booming across the dining table, "I'm thrilled to share that I'm not only expanding my company, but I'm also going to be a father. My amazing girlfriend, Chloe, is pregnant." He then turned to Liam, a glint in his eye. "Liam, I know it must be tough for you, seeing me achieve so much so quickly, but thanks for inspiring me to aim higher. I hope you and Sarah find your own version of happiness, however modest." The room went silent. Chloe, a quiet woman who seemed perpetually uncomfortable around Alex, flushed scarlet. Then Liam, who had been quietly observing Alex all evening, finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost detached. "Actually, Alex, we have some news too." He looked at Sarah, who smiled softly, placing a hand on her slightly rounded stomach. "Sarah and I are expecting, due in about 4 months. We just found out we're having twins." A ripple went through the room. Our parents, for once, seemed genuinely surprised, their eyes darting between Liam and Alex. Alex's smug grin faltered, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "Twins, huh? Well, that's efficient." Then, the true architect of the evening's unraveling stepped forward. Malik, a former colleague of mine, now a sharp-suited lawyer specializing in corporate takeovers. I had quietly engaged him months ago after noticing some highly questionable financial practices within Alex's company during a casual catch-up over coffee. Malik held up a tablet. "And speaking of efficiency, Alex," Malik said, his voice even, "I've just concluded the hostile takeover of your company. As of this morning, your shares are worthless, your investors have pulled out, and you are no longer CEO. In fact, you're unemployed." Alex's jaw dropped. "What? That's impossible. You can't," Malik continued, unmoved. "Oh, and those expansion plans you mentioned? They involve funneling investor funds into shell corporations you controlled, Alex. That's called embezzlement." The SEC has already been contacted. Your personal accounts have been frozen, and your Malibu estate and luxury vehicles, they were purchased with company funds, which means they're now corporate assets. You'll be evicted by the end of the week. He then turned to Chloe, who looked as though she might faint. Chloe, you might want to consider your options. Alex has several other investors he's been seeing on the side. 3 of them, to be exact, have already contacted their own attorneys and are preparing to file palimony suits. One of them is also pregnant. Chloe gasped, tears welling in her eyes. Alex, pale and shaking, fumbled for his phone, which suddenly began to buzz incessantly. News alerts, emails, and frantic calls from his now former colleagues flooded in. His carefully constructed empire was crumbling in real time. This is all a lie, Alex stammered, his voice cracking. Liam, you put him up to this, didn't you? You're just jealous. You always have been. Liam stepped forward, his eyes holding a newfound steely resolve. Jealous, Alex? Of what? Your house of cards? Your hollow achievements? You spent your life trying to prove you were better than everyone, including me, when all I ever wanted was to live my own life. You tried to sabotage my wedding, you mocked my passion, and you even went so far as to try and interfere with Sarah's medical appointments, attempting to access her fertility records. He pulled out his own phone and played a muffled recording. It was Alex's voice, clear as day. Liam's getting married in Napa? Pathetic. I'll show him what real money looks like. And Sarah? She's probably just after his art money. I'll make sure they never even get pregnant. I'll hack their clinic records if I have to. Alex's face drained of all color. That's edited, is it? Malik interjected, holding up a file. Because we have corroborating evidence. IP addresses of attempted unauthorized access to Sarah's clinic portal, witness statements from clinic staff about a man matching your description trying to impersonate Liam, and even a purchase order for specialized hacking software found on your company's servers. Our parents, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally stirred. Our mother, always Alex's staunchest defender, began to sob. Alex, how could you? Sarah is pregnant with twins. How could you even think of something so cruel? Cruel? Alex snarled, his mask completely gone. You two enabled him. You always gave Liam whatever he wanted, subtly of course, while I had to fight for every scrap of recognition. I worked my butt off to be successful, and he just glides by on talent. And Sarah? She stole him from the family dynamic. Silence is choosing a side, I said, my voice cutting through the tension. Everyone turned to look at me. You've been silent about Alex's behavior our whole lives. When he cheated on tests, you called it healthy competition. When he manipulated his way into Liam's college club, you said he's just ambitious. When he tried to undermine Liam's art career, you called it tough love. You chose Alex by enabling him for 30 years. Alex, seeing tears weren't working, tried a new tactic. He pulled out his own phone, a manic glint in his eye. You think you've won? I've been recording every conversation in this house for the past year, including yours, Liam, where you discussed this hostile takeover before it was public information. That's insider trading, sweetheart. And I have recordings of you, Malik, admitting to some creative tax strategies too. Liam, however, just smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You really should have checked who actually owns the security company that installed those cameras, Alex. The room went dead silent. Alex's smile faltered. What did you just say? Liam stood up slowly, a hand protectively on Sarah's back. I said, you should have checked who owns the security company. Plot twist, little brother. I've known about your recordings for 6 months, and I've been feeding you exactly what I wanted you to hear. Every single word. Alex's phone suddenly went black. Then mine. Then everyone's in the room. The question is, Alex, Liam continued, walking toward him. Do you want to know what I've been recording in your house? Because I promise you, it's so much worse than anything you think you have on me. Just then, we heard sirens approaching, growing louder until they stopped directly outside. Through the dining room window, we saw police cars pull up to Alex's mansion. The timing was coincidental. A neighbor had reported a disturbance, but the tension in the room made it feel like the sirens were for us. Alex's hands shook as he frantically pressed buttons on his dead phone. Chloe stood frozen, her face cycling through confusion, anger, and fear. Our parents sat speechless, their eyes darting between their 2 sons, as if watching a tennis match they couldn't comprehend. Liam pulled out his own phone, which still worked perfectly. He tapped the screen a few times, and suddenly Alex's voice filled the room from hidden speakers. Chloe is so naive. She actually thinks I care about her. I've been moving money from my company accounts for months. By the time I'm done, I'll have nothing left for her to claim. The recording continued, Alex's voice clear as day, discussing his plans to frame Liam for various business malpractices, his schemes to turn our parents against him permanently, and most damning of all, his confession about deliberately causing Liam's art deal with a major gallery to fall through by anonymously sending them forged negative reviews and fake scandal reports 2 years ago. Alex lunged for Liam's phone, but Malik stepped between them. Despite being smaller than Alex, Malik's calm demeanor made Alex step back immediately. Sit down, Malik said quietly. Alex sat. Chloe's face had gone from red to white to green. She clutched her stomach, and for a moment I thought she might actually be sick right there on Alex's polished marble floor. That's edited, Alex stammered. You can't prove anything. Those recordings are fake. Liam smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Really? Because I have the originals, timestamped, location tagged. Some of them even have video, Alex. Like the one where you're in my old apartment going through my art portfolios while I was at my gallery meetings. Or the one where you're teaching your nephew, our sister's son, to call me the struggling artist who can't provide for anyone. He's 5, Alex, 5 years old, and you're already teaching him cruelty. Our mother finally found her voice. Liam, Alex, please. We're family. We can work this out without all this drama. Drama? Liam turned to his mother. And years of suppressed anger finally surfaced. He tried to sabotage my career. He tried to undermine my relationship. He wore white to my wedding, effectively, by stealing the spotlight with his success and acting like nothing was wrong. And you called it drama? You attended his extravagant parties like nothing happened. You chose him over me? Just like you always have. We didn't choose sides, our father protested weakly. Silence is choosing a side, I found myself saying. Everyone turned to look at me. You've been silent about Alex's behavior our whole lives. When he cheated on tests, you said, he's just resourceful. When he spread rumors about Liam's girlfriends in college, you said, boys will be boys. When he literally tried to derail Liam's art career, you said Liam should be happy for his brother's ambition. You've been choosing Alex by enabling him for 30 years. Alex tried a different tactic. Tears. They came easily. They always had. I'm gonna be a father, he wailed. You can't do this to a pregnant woman. Think of my children. I am thinking of your children, Liam said coldly. They deserve better than a father who lies, cheats, and destroys. They deserve better than parents who teach them that hurting others is acceptable if you can get away with it. He turned back to his phone and pulled up another file. This one's my favorite, Alex. It's you and Chloe arguing about his affairs, not because you're hurt, but because, and I quote, those other women better not think they're getting any of my money. You knew about every single one of them. You didn't care as long as the checks kept coming. Alex's phone suddenly came back to life, buzzing with what seemed like 100 notifications at once. His face went pale as he read through them. The business accounts? They're frozen. All of them. How did you? Turns out when you use company funds to pay for luxury jets and expensive gifts for your mistresses, that's embezzlement, Malik explained calmly. The board was very interested in those receipts. They called an emergency meeting an hour ago. You're not unemployed yet, Alex, but you will be by morning. And those women you've been seeing? They've all been very cooperative with providing evidence, especially Sarah's sister, Olivia, the one who's pregnant. She's particularly angry about you telling her you were getting a divorce to marry her. Alex stood up abruptly, knocking over his water glass. You can't prove any of this. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll take everything you have. With what lawyer? Liam asked. The one you've been having an affair with? Oh yes, I know about Marcus too. His wife knows now as well. She's also a lawyer, by the way, senior partner at their firm. I don't think Marcus will be taking your calls anymore. The room felt like it was spinning. Our parents looked like they'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Alex was frantically scrolling through his phone, presumably watching his life fall apart in real time. Chloe stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Here's what's going to happen, Liam said, standing up and placing a protective hand over Sarah's stomach. You're going to leave my life alone. You're going to stop spreading lies about me. You're going to get therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you manipulate the therapist into thinking you're the victim. And you're going to stay away from me and my family. Or what? Alex snarled, the mask finally completely off. You'll release some edited recordings? You think you've won? I'll destroy you. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Liam pulled up one final video on his phone. It was Alex sitting in what looked like Liam's old studio apartment, holding a small, unidentifiable device. This should do it, Alex's recorded voice said. A few of these reports to the gallery and bye-bye art deal. He'll think it's just bad luck, poor Liam. The room went completely silent. Even the sirens outside had faded away. You recorded yourself planning to sabotage my career, Liam said quietly. You recorded yourself actually doing it, and you kept the video. Why, Alex? As a trophy, Alex's legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair, all fight gone. I didn't mean it. It wasn't supposed to. To what? Sarah asked, her voice surprisingly strong. Just make Liam sick enough to give up his passion? What exactly was your plan? Our mother started crying, real tears, not the manipulative kind Alex wielded like weapons. My sons, she sobbed. What have you done? What have we done? You enabled a monster, I said flatly. And now, you're seeing what monsters do when they think they're invincible. Alex suddenly jumped up. I need to go. I need to... The lawyers. I have to. He headed for the door, but Malik's voice stopped him. I wouldn't go home if I were you. Chloe's there with her brothers. They're very protective of their pregnant sister, the one you told you were getting divorced to marry. Alex's face went even paler, if that was possible. He slumped against the doorframe. Liam gathered Sarah's purse and took her offered hand. We're leaving now, Alex. You have 48 hours to get your personal belongings out of this house. Malik's team will supervise your visit. We've already changed the locks. Liam, please, Alex whispered. I'm your brother. No, Liam said firmly. You're someone who happened to share parents with me. Brothers don't try to sabotage each other's lives. Brothers don't try to steal each other's happiness. You're not my brother. You're just someone I used to know. He turned to our parents. And you two, I'm done hoping you'll choose me. Choose your golden child. Live with that choice. But know that my children will never know you. They'll never know the grandparents who stood by while one son tried to destroy the other. As Liam and Sarah walked toward the door, Alex made one last desperate attempt. You're recording this too, aren't you? This whole thing? You're just as bad as me. Liam paused at the doorway and looked back. The difference is, I'm recording evidence of crimes. You recorded yourself committing them. And for the record, this isn't being recorded. I don't need to. Everyone here heard everything. Mom, Dad, Chloe, our sister. Everyone knows who you really are now. That's punishment enough. They left, and the silence that followed was deafening. Alex sat at the table, staring at his hands. Chloe stood frozen by the door. Our parents held each other's, like looking lost and broken. I stood up to leave too. Where are you going? My mother asked desperately. To Liam's, I said simply. To celebrate the twins with my actual brother. The one who never tried to destroy anyone. The one you should have protected instead of enabling his abuser. As I walked out, I heard Alex start to sob. Not the fake tears he'd perfected over years of manipulation, but real, ugly crying. The kind that comes when you realize you've destroyed everything and everyone around you. And there's no one left to blame but yourself. The police cars were gone when I stepped outside. The neighborhood was quiet. Peaceful even, but inside that house, a family was falling apart. And for once, the right person was paying the price. I drove to Liam and Sarah's house in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I processed what had just happened. The quiet suburban streets felt surreal after the chaos we'd left behind. When I pulled into their driveway, Liam's car was already there, and the porch light was on, welcoming me. Sarah opened the door before I could knock. Her face showed exhaustion, but there was also relief. We hugged without words. And I followed her inside, where Liam was making tea in the kitchen. How long have you known about the sabotage? I asked, accepting the cup offered. Sarah sat down heavily, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. 6 months, Liam said, joining us. I found the video when I was going through the security footage, looking for something else entirely. At first, I couldn't believe it. Even knowing everything Alex had done, I never thought he'd go that far. The next morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was our mother, hysterical. Alex had shown up at their house at midnight, demanding they help him. He'd brought Chloe, who was confused and crying. Alex's accounts had been completely frozen, and he was being evicted from the Malibu estate. Chloe had discovered his other affairs and had already left with her brothers. I met Liam and Sarah for breakfast to update them. Liam listened calmly, stirring his decaf coffee. He's going to escalate, Liam said matter-of-factly. Alex never learned how to lose. This is just the beginning. He was right. By noon, Alex had called me 17 times. The voicemail started pleading, then angry, then threatening. He claimed he had more recordings, more secrets. He said he'd ruin all of us if we didn't help him. That afternoon, Liam invited me to his home studio. The walls were covered with timelines, documents, and photographs. It looked like a detective's investigation board. I've been preparing for this for 2 years, he explained. Every move Alex might make, every lie he might tell, I've anticipated it. He showed me folders of evidence. Bank statements showing Alex's theft from his own company accounts, text messages between Alex and his various affair partners, even recordings of Alex coaching our nephew to be cruel to Liam at family gatherings. The worst part, Liam said, pulling out another folder, is what he's done to those kids. He's been using them as weapons since they were born. 3 days passed in relative quiet. Then Alex made his next move. He showed up at Liam's gallery with the children, causing a scene in the lobby. He accused Liam of stealing his success, of destroying his family, of being a fraudulent artist. Security had to escort him out, but not before several clients witnessed the spectacle. Liam came home that evening looking stressed for the first time since this began. He's trying to damage my professional reputation, he told Sarah. My gallery owners aren't happy about the drama. Sarah squeezed his hand. I'm sorry. I never wanted this to affect your work. Hey, Liam said firmly. We're in this together. I knew who Alex was when I married you. This isn't your fault. But Alex wasn't done. The next day, he created social media accounts under fake names and started posting Liam's personal information online. He shared twisted versions of their childhood, painting Liam as the jealous brother who'd always resented Alex's success. He even posted photos from Liam's early art exhibitions, claiming Liam had stolen the ideas from him. I spent hours reporting the accounts, but new ones kept appearing. Liam remained calm, documenting everything. Let him dig his own grave, he said. Every post is evidence of harassment. A week later, Alex tried a different approach. He had the children call Liam, crying about how they missed their Uncle Liam. The 5-year-old's voice was coached, obviously reading from a script Alex had written. Daddy says you hate us now. Why don't you love us anymore? Liam had to leave the room after that call. It was the first time I'd seen him cry since this all started. Those are kids, he whispered. They don't deserve this. Meanwhile, Chloe had resurfaced. She'd been staying with her brothers, but that arrangement exploded when 2 of Alex's other pregnant girlfriends showed up at her apartment. The resulting confrontation made it onto neighborhood social media pages, with videos of Alex being chased down the street by 3 angry women. He called me, desperate. You have to help me. Talk to Liam. This has gone too far. I'll do anything to make it stop. You made your choices, Alex, I told him. You destroyed your own life. Liam just held up a mirror. Our parents were caught in the middle, housing Alex and the children while trying to process the revelation about his attempted sabotage. Mom called me daily, alternating between defending Alex, He was probably joking in that video and expressing horror. How could he do that to his own brother? 2 weeks into the chaos, Alex made his biggest mistake. He contacted Sarah's OBGYN, posing as Liam, to try to access her medical records. The clinic had protocols in place and immediately notified Sarah of the attempted breach. This gave Liam the ammunition he needed. Identity theft and attempted access of medical records were serious crimes. He filed a police report, finally involving authorities, but only for these specific incidents, not the broader family drama. Alex panicked. He showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., pounding on the door. "You have to make him stop," he screamed through the door. "I'm your brother too. How can you take his side?" I called building security without opening the door. As they escorted him out, he screamed threats about ruining my life too. How he knew things about me that would destroy my career. Empty threats. But the neighbors heard everything. The next morning, Liam's lawyer sent Alex a cease and desist letter. It outlined every incident of harassment, every threatening message, every attempt to damage Liam and Sarah's reputations. It was comprehensive and damning. Alex's response was to try to manipulate our parents into taking out a loan to help him. He claimed he needed money for a lawyer to fight Liam's lies. Dad, showing backbone for the first time in my memory, refused. "We've enabled you enough," he said. "You tried to destroy your brother's life. There's no excuse for that." This rejection broke something in Alex. He started making increasingly erratic decisions. He pulled the children out of school, claiming Liam had spies there. He moved out of our parents' house and into a motel, dragging the confused kids with him. Child Protective Services got involved after the school reported the children's absence and Alex's concerning behavior. This wasn't Liam's doing, but Alex blamed him anyway. The social worker who visited found the children living in chaos, eating fast food for every meal, while Alex spent his time creating fake social media accounts and recording rambling videos about how he was being persecuted. During this time, Sarah focused on her pregnancy. The stress was affecting her health, and her doctor put her on partial bed rest. I spent most evenings at their house, helping with meals and just being present. We didn't talk about Alex during these visits. Instead, we planned for the twins, discussed baby names, and watched mindless TV shows. But Alex wouldn't let us have peace. He discovered where Sarah's doctor's appointments were and started showing up at the medical building. He wouldn't approach Sarah directly, just stood in the parking lot, watching. It was deeply unsettling. Liam hired private security to accompany Sarah to appointments. Alex filmed the security guards and posted videos, claiming Liam had hired thugs to intimidate him. The comments on these videos were not what Alex expected. Most people could see through his manipulation and called him out for stalking a pregnant woman. 3 weeks into this nightmare, Alex's life completely imploded. The board officially fired him for embezzlement. His assets were frozen pending investigation. Olivia had her baby, a boy, and immediately filed for child support. The other women he'd been seeing came forward with their own claims. He was facing financial ruin from multiple directions. In desperation, Alex did something unexpected. He went to the police and confessed to everything. His affairs, his embezzlement, even his knowledge of his plans to harm Liam. He offered to testify against his former business partners in exchange for leniency on his charges. Alex found out about Chloe's betrayal when detectives showed up at the motel to question him. According to the police report I later saw, he completely lost control, throwing objects and screaming incoherently. The children witnessed everything. That was the final straw for child services. They removed the children from Alex's custody, placing them temporarily with our parents while the investigation continued. Alex blamed Liam for this too, even though Liam had nothing to do with it. The night the children were removed, Alex sent one last message to Liam. It was a video of him standing on a bridge, threatening to jump if Liam didn't call off the lawyers and give him money. Liam immediately called emergency services, who found Alex at the location and took him for psychiatric evaluation. During Alex's 72-hour hold, more truth came out. The psychiatrist discovered Alex had been taking stimulants prescribed for ADHD, not his own prescription, for years, mixing them with alcohol and other substances. His erratic behavior was partly fueled by substance abuse, though it didn't excuse his calculated cruelty. Our parents aged visibly during this period. They attended therapy themselves, finally confronting how their favoritism had created this situation. "We always gave Alex what he wanted," Mom told me tearfully. "We thought we were keeping peace. We were just teaching him that he could hurt people without consequences." When Alex was released from psychiatric hold, he found himself truly alone for the first time. Chloe was gone, dealing with her own legal troubles. His children were with our parents, who now had strict boundaries about his access to them. His friends had distanced themselves after seeing his social media meltdowns. Even Marcus, the lawyer he'd been having an affair with, had filed a restraining order after Alex showed up at his house and confronted his wife. He moved into a smaller motel and got a job at a grocery store, his first real employment in years. He continued posting videos, but they became less coherent, more rambling. His followers dwindled as people lost interest in his manufactured drama. Meanwhile, Sarah's pregnancy progressed. The twins were growing well despite the stress. She and Liam had turned the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting it soft yellow with white trim. I helped them assemble cribs one afternoon, and for a few hours we could pretend everything was normal. But normal was still far away. Alex discovered Sarah's baby registry online and began ordering items to be delivered, but with disturbing notes attached. "For the babies you stole from me," one read. Another said, "Hope these replace the ones that didn't make it." Sarah had to contact every store on her registry to block Alex's access. It was exhausting, having to constantly defend against these small acts of harassment, but Liam and Sarah remained methodical, documenting everything, building their case. 6 weeks after the dinner confrontation, Alex made one final desperate play. He contacted a tabloid journalist, offering to sell his story about the evil brother who destroyed his life. He provided the recordings he'd made, the ones he thought showed Liam and Malik confessing to crimes. The journalist, however, was more interested in Alex's own admissions on those recordings. Instead of the expose Alex wanted, the article focused on his confession to sabotaging his brother's career. Alex had accidentally given them evidence of his own crimes while trying to frame Liam. When the article came out, Alex's remaining support evaporated. The few people who'd believed his victim narrative were horrified by his own words, admitting to causing Liam's professional downfall. Even online, where he'd found some sympathizers, people turned against him. Our parents finally took decisive action. They filed for temporary custody of Alex's children and began the process of protecting them from their father's influence. It was painful for them, but they recognized that those children needed stability and safety. Alex's response was to violate the cease and desist order spectacularly. He showed up at Liam's house while I was there for dinner. He didn't ring the doorbell, just stood in the yard, staring at the windows. When Liam went out to tell him to leave, he started screaming about how Liam had ruined his life, how he'd stolen everything. Neighbors called police. When officers arrived, Alex pulled out his phone and started live streaming, claiming he was being arrested for loving his brother too much. The officers were professional but firm. He was violating a legal order. He needed to leave or face arrest. Alex chose arrest. As they handcuffed him, he looked directly at the camera and said, "Liam, I know you're watching. This isn't over. You took everything from me. My business, my children, my life. I'll never stop making you pay." But even as he said it, you could see the defeat in his eyes. He'd lost everything, not because Liam had taken it, but because he destroyed it himself with his lies, his cruelty, and his inability to accept responsibility for his actions. I stayed with Liam and Sarah that night. They were shaken by Alex's appearance, but also strangely calm. "I knew it would come to this," Liam said. "Alex always has to have the last word, even when he's already lost." The arrest was a violation of his cease and desist, which meant actual legal consequences. Alex spent the night in jail and was released on bail the next morning. Our parents, finally drawing firm boundaries, refused to pay his bail. He had to use a bail bondsman, adding another financial burden to his mounting problems. The stress of everything was taking its toll on Sarah. Her doctor was concerned about her blood pressure and the risk of early labor. She was put on complete bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy. Liam took time off work to care for her, and I arranged my schedule to be there during the days when he couldn't. During this quiet period, Liam finally opened up about the depth of Alex's betrayal. "It wasn't just my career," he said one afternoon. "It was every achievement I worked for, every moment of happiness. He couldn't stand to see me have anything he didn't." He showed me old diaries from high school where he documented Alex's systematic campaign to undermine him. Teachers Alex had charmed into giving Liam lower grades. Friends Alex had turned against him with carefully placed lies. Opportunities Alex had sabotaged with anonymous complaints. "I thought getting away for college would help," Liam continued, "but he followed me, applied to the same school, got into my art program, even dated my ex-girlfriends after I broke up with them, just to prove he could." The pattern was clear and disturbing. Alex's entire identity seemed built around taking things from Liam. Without that dynamic, he didn't know who he was. And now, with nothing left to take, he was falling apart. 2 months after the confrontation, the legal consequences began catching up with everyone. Alex's business partners, facing their own legal woes, pleaded guilty to fraud charges, and their testimony against Alex was part of their plea deal. Alex's trial for identity theft and harassment was set for the following month. His public defender advised him to take a plea deal, but Alex refused. He insisted on his day in court, convinced he could make everyone see that he was the real victim. Our parents struggled with the decision to testify against Alex. They'd already provided statements about the video and Alex's confession, but taking the stand felt like a final betrayal of their son. Their therapist helped them see it differently. Testifying was about protecting the grandchildren and holding Alex accountable, not about choosing sides. During this time, Sarah went into early labor. The stress had finally overwhelmed her body's ability to protect the pregnancy. I was with her when her water broke 5 weeks before her due date. The rush to the hospital was terrifying, with Sarah gripping my hand and whispering, "Not again. Please, not again." But this time was different. The twins, a boy and a girl, were born small but healthy. They spent 2 weeks in the NICU, but there were no serious complications. Liam and Sarah named them Alexander, after his father, not his uncle, and Nora, new beginnings with no connection to the family drama. Alex found out about the births through social media. Someone had posted congratulations on Liam's gallery page. His reaction was to send a card to the hospital. "Congratulations on stealing my life so completely. Enjoy my leftovers." Hospital security intercepted the card, adding it to the evidence file for Alex's upcoming trial. Even in what should have been Liam and Sarah's moment of joy, Alex couldn't resist trying to cause pain. As the twins came home and life settled into a new routine, the extended family began to heal. Our parents, granted temporary custody of Alex's children, worked with therapists to undo the damage of their father's manipulation. The children slowly began to understand that love didn't mean hurting others, that family meant support, not sabotage. Alex from prison sent a letter of apology to Liam. It was rambling and self-pitying, but he did acknowledge the pain he'd caused. Liam read it once and threw it away. "He's not worth the energy," he said, focused instead on his babies and his future. Alex's world continued to shrink. He lost his job after missing shifts for court appearances. His motel kicked him out for non-payment. He moved in with a distant cousin who hadn't heard the full story, but that arrangement lasted less than a week, once the cousin Googled Alex's name and found the tabloid articles. The night before his trial, Alex made one last attempt at manipulation. He called our parents, sobbing about how sorry he was, how he'd gotten help and was better now. He begged them to drop the charges, to give him another chance. When they gently refused, explaining that the charges weren't theirs to drop, he exploded in rage, showing that nothing had really changed. The trial itself was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Alex's own recordings meant to blackmail Liam became proof of his crimes. His social media posts showed a clear pattern of harassment. The identity theft at the medical office was documented and undeniable. Alex took the stand against his lawyer's advice. He tried to paint himself as a loving brother driven to desperation by Liam's cruelty, but under cross-examination, his story fell apart. He couldn't explain the sabotage video. He couldn't justify the identity theft. His tears, which had always been his weapon, now seemed hollow and manipulative to everyone watching. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge, noting the particular cruelty of targeting a pregnant woman's medical records and the ongoing harassment, sentenced Alex to 18 months in prison and 3 years of probation. He was also ordered to have no contact with Liam, Sarah, their children, or our parents. As they led Alex away, he turned to look at Liam one last time. The hatred in his eyes was mixed with something else. Confusion, maybe. As if he still couldn't understand how his lifetime of manipulation had led to this moment. Liam didn't attend the sentencing. He was home with his twins, building the life Alex had tried so hard to destroy. When I told him about the verdict, he simply nodded. "It's over," he said quietly. "Finally, it's over." But we all knew it wasn't really over. Alex would serve his time and eventually be released. He'd have to rebuild his life from nothing, hopefully learning from his mistakes, but possibly just becoming more bitter. The children would grow up knowing their father had chosen cruelty over family. The scars would remain. Still, as I watched Liam cuddle his babies while Sarah made dinner, I saw hope. He'd survived Alex's worst attacks. He'd protected himself and his family. He'd refused to let Alex's poison, literal and figurative, destroy his chance at happiness. Our family would never be what it once was. The illusion of harmony had been shattered, replaced by something more honest, if more painful. But maybe that was better. Maybe facing the truth, however ugly, was the first step toward real healing. As I left Liam and Sarah's house that evening, I thought about the different paths the two brothers had taken. Liam had chosen love, building a life with Sarah and their children. Alex had chosen hate, destroying everything he touched in his need to hurt his brother. The consequences of those choices were now clear. Liam was surrounded by love, building a future. Alex was alone, facing the ruins of the life he demolished with his own hands. It was justice of a sort. Not perfect, not complete, but real. The twins were crying as I reached my car, the normal sounds of a healthy family. Through the window, I could see Liam and Sarah working together to soothe them. A team united in love and purpose. This was what Alex had tried to steal, what he'd never understood. Real love wasn't about taking from others, it was about building something together. As I drove away, I knew the hard times weren't over. There would be appeals, probation hearings, and the ongoing challenge of protecting the children from their father's influence. But Liam had proven he could handle whatever came next. He'd faced his brother's worst and emerged stronger. The family we'd grown up in was gone, destroyed by Alex's choices and our parents' enabling. But from those ashes, something new was growing. A family based on truth instead of pretense, on accountability instead of excuses. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. The morning after Alex's sentencing, I woke to my phone buzzing with texts from an unknown number. The messages were from Alex's cellmate, offering to deliver messages for a fee. I blocked the number immediately, but more kept coming throughout the day from different phones. Alex had found a way to continue his harassment, even from behind bars. Liam and Sarah decided to change their phone numbers, but Alex's reach extended beyond direct contact. He'd convinced another inmate to have their family members create new social media accounts, posting old photos of Liam and Sarah with captions about true love stolen by a jealous brother. The posts tagged Liam's colleagues, Sarah's school, even the pediatrician caring for the twins. Our parents discovered Alex had been calling them collect multiple times daily, leaving voicemails that alternated between tearful apologies and vicious threats. When they stopped accepting the calls, he started writing letters, Dozens of them, sometimes 5 or 6, arriving in a single day. The letters contained detailed plans for what he'd do when released, how he'd get his children back, how he'd make Liam pay. One letter particularly disturbed our father. In it, Alex described watching Liam and Sarah's house, noting the times Liam left for work, when I visited, even when the mail was delivered. The details were too accurate to be guesswork. Someone on the outside was feeding him information. That someone turned out to be Mark, a man Alex had met through a prison pen pal website. He'd been visiting Alex regularly, bringing him commissary money and promising to help him get revenge on Liam. Our parents only discovered this when Mark showed up at their house, claiming Alex had sent him to collect his belongings, which apparently included family photo albums and Liam's old yearbooks. Dad refused to let him in, but Mark returned the next day and the next. He'd park outside their house for hours, just watching. When Mom finally called the police, Mark insisted he was just visiting his fiancé's family. Alex had apparently accepted his proposal during a jailhouse visit, despite having known him for less than 2 months. Liam hired a private investigator to look into Mark. What they found was disturbing. A history of attaching himself to incarcerated women, draining their families of money with promises to help their loved ones. He had 3 restraining orders from previous fiancés' families, but Alex either didn't know or didn't care. He'd found someone willing to be his weapon on the outside. The investigator also discovered something else. Mark had been in contact with Alex's former mistresses, trying to gather dirt on Liam and Sarah. Most had refused to talk to him, but one, a woman named Vanessa, had been feeding him information in exchange for money Alex promised she'd have soon. This explained the accurate details in Alex's letters. Vanessa worked at a coffee shop near Liam and Sarah's neighborhood and had been noting their routines. When confronted by the investigator, she broke down and admitted Mark had promised her $5,000 for information that could destroy Liam's perfect life. Meanwhile, Alex's children were struggling. The oldest had started having nightmares, calling out for daddy in his sleep. The middle child had become withdrawn, refusing to speak at school. The youngest, barely 2, kept asking when daddy was coming home. Our parents were doing their best, but the children needed more help than they could provide. Liam made a difficult decision. Despite the no-contact order, he felt responsible for his nephews and niece. He couldn't interact with them directly, but he set up education funds for each child and arranged for a child psychologist to work with them weekly. The bills went to our parents, but Liam paid them quietly, never seeking recognition. Mark escalated his harassment. He started showing up at Liam's gallery, claiming to have business proposals. When security turned him away, he'd wait in the parking garage, approaching Liam's colleagues with stories about how Liam had destroyed an innocent family. Several clients expressed concern, and Liam's gallery owners called a meeting to discuss the situation. Liam handled it brilliantly. He presented all the documentation, the restraining orders against Mark, Alex's conviction, the evidence of his crimes. His partners were appalled, not at Liam, but at the lengths Alex was going to from prison. They hired additional security and banned Mark from the building. But Mark wasn't done. He showed up at the twins' daycare, claiming to be their uncle. The daycare followed protocol and called Liam and Sarah immediately. They arrived to find Mark arguing with the director, insisting he had a right to see his family. The police arrested him for trespassing, but he was released within hours. That night, Liam found Mark in his backyard. He was taking photos through the windows with a telephoto lens. Liam chased him off, but not before Mark shouted that Alex would never stop fighting for what was his. The security system captured everything, and this time, Mark was arrested for stalking. But even from jail, he managed to cause problems. He'd given Alex's letters to other inmates' visitors to mail, circumventing the prison's monitoring system. The letters contained photos Mark had taken, Liam at the grocery store, Sarah at a gas station, me walking into my apartment building. Our parents were at their breaking point. Mom had developed anxiety attacks, jumping every time the doorbell rang. Dad had started sleeping with a baseball bat beside the bed. They loved Alex's children but felt trapped between protecting them and protecting themselves from their son's escalating campaign of terror. Then came the breaking point. Alex's cellmate was released and showed up at Liam and Sarah's house with a message. She stood on the porch, reading from a paper in Alex's handwriting. I know where the twins go to daycare. I know what time you pick them up. I know the route you take home. Mark will be watching, always watching. Give me my children back or I'll take yours. Liam called the police immediately. The woman was arrested for communicating threats, but the damage was done. Liam and Sarah pulled the twins from daycare, hired round-the-clock security, and installed additional cameras covering every angle of their property. The stress was affecting everyone. Sarah's milk supply dropped, and she struggled to feed the twins. Liam developed insomnia, checking the security feeds multiple times each night. I started varying my routes to their house, paranoid about being followed. Our parents aged years in weeks, the strain of protecting Alex's children while fearing their father visible in every line on their faces. 3 months into Alex's sentence, he made a mistake. He'd been corresponding with multiple men through prison pen pal sites, promising each of them different things in exchange for their help. When 2 of them showed up to visit on the same day, a fight broke out in the visiting room. Both men were arrested, and Alex's male privileges were revoked. Without his ability to orchestrate harassment from inside, Alex Alex grew desperate. He started picking fights with other inmates, hoping to extend his sentence and delay the inevitable. But the warden saw through his plan. Instead of additional charges, he was placed in solitary confinement for his own protection. Mark, meanwhile, had violated his bail conditions by contacting Liam and Sarah's family. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail, but not before sending one final package to Liam and Sarah's house. Inside were hundreds of photos he'd taken over months. The family at parks, stores, restaurants. The detail was obsessive, notes written on the back of each photo describing their activities. The prosecutor used the photos to file additional charges against both Mark and Alex: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, based on the threat about taking the twins, criminal harassment, stalking by proxy. The charges would add years to Alex's sentence if convicted. Alex's public defender convinced him to take a plea deal. In exchange for dropping the kidnapping conspiracy charge, he pleaded guilty to the harassment and stalking charges. His sentence was extended by 3 years, and he was transferred to a facility 500 miles away, making it harder for him to maintain local connections. Our parents made the difficult decision to file for permanent custody of Alex's children. The court proceedings were heartbreaking. The oldest child testified via closed-circuit TV about his father's behavior, describing how he taught him to lie about Liam, how he told him Uncle Liam stole Daddy's success. The judge granted permanent custody to our parents, with Liam and Sarah named as guardians should anything happen to them. Chloe, from her own legal battles, signed away her parental rights without contest. She wanted nothing to do with the children or the chaos Alex had created. Her only request was that her name be removed from their birth certificates, a legal impossibility that showed how desperately she wanted to erase her connection to Alex. With Mark in jail and Alex's communication limited, life slowly stabilized. Liam and Sarah maintained their security measures but began venturing out more. The twins started reaching developmental milestones. First smiles, rolling over, babbling. Normal baby things that felt like victories after months of crisis. I helped our parents redecorate Alex's children's rooms, removing reminders of their chaotic past and creating spaces that felt safe and permanent. The children responded well to stability and therapy. The oldest stopped having nightmares. The middle child began talking again. The youngest adapted quickly, calling our parents grandma and grandpa without prompting. 6 months after Alex's transfer, we received word that he'd been placed on suicide watch, not because he was actually suicidal, but because he'd been threatening self-harm to manipulate staff into giving him privileges. The psychiatrist's report was damning. Patient shows no genuine remorse, continues to blame others for his situation, and demonstrates persistent antisocial behavior patterns. Liam made another difficult decision. He wrote to the prison, offering to pay for Alex to receive proper psychiatric treatment, not for Alex's sake, but for his children, who deserved a father who might someday be capable of healthy relationships. The offer was made through lawyers, maintaining the no-contact order while still extending help. Alex refused. He sent word through his lawyer that he didn't need help, that Liam was the one who needed treatment for his jealousy and vindictiveness. Even faced with the consequences of his actions, he couldn't admit fault. The children continued to thrive with our parents. The oldest joined Little League, the middle child discovered a love of art, and the youngest started preschool. Liam and Sarah were careful to maintain boundaries, but they included the children in family gatherings, ensuring they grew up knowing they were loved despite their parents' failures. A year into Alex's extended sentence, Mark was released. He immediately left the state, apparently finding another incarcerated woman to attach himself to. The restraining orders remained in place, but his departure brought relief. One less threat to monitor. Alex found new ways to cause trouble. He filed lawsuits from prison against Liam for alienation of affection, against our parents for kidnapping his children, against Liam's gallery for conspiracy to commit fraud. Each suit was dismissed as frivolous, but they still required responses, still cost money and time. He also began writing a memoir about his wrongful persecution, finding a vanity publisher willing to print it for a fee. When excerpts appeared online, they were so obviously fabricated that even Alex's few remaining supporters distanced themselves. The book portrayed him as a victim of a vast conspiracy, with Liam as the mastermind who'd planned his downfall since childhood. Our parents had to get a restraining order against the publisher when they tried to interview Alex's children for a sequel. The children's therapist testified that any contact with their mother's delusions would undo years of progress. The judge agreed, placing strict limits on any mention of the children in Alex's writings. Liam and Sarah's twins grew into curious, happy toddlers. They took their first steps, said their first words, developed distinct personalities. Alexander was bold and adventurous, while Nora was thoughtful and cautious. Watching them grow felt like proof that life could move forward, that Alex's poison hadn't infected everything. But reminders persisted. Every legal document regarding the children had to be carefully worded to prevent Alex from finding loopholes. Every school registration required explanations about custody arrangements. Every medical appointment meant updating security protocols to prevent unauthorized access to records. Liam's business thrived despite the early challenges. His gallery owners, impressed by how he'd handled the situation, gave him greater responsibilities. He used his success to ensure financial security for both sets of children, setting up trusts that Alex couldn't touch even after his release. I found myself becoming the family historian, documenting the truth for when the children were old enough to understand, not to poison them against their father, but to ensure they had facts when Alex inevitably tried to rewrite history. The therapist said having a clear, honest record would help them process their complicated family dynamics as adults. 2 years into her extended sentence, Alex was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder by the prison psychiatrist. The diagnosis surprised no one but Alex, who fired his lawyer for not preventing the evaluation. He continued to refuse treatment, insisting there was nothing wrong with him that getting his children back wouldn't fix. Our parents struggled with guilt. They wondered if different choices might have prevented this outcome. Their therapist helped them understand that while they'd enabled Alex's behavior, his choices were his own. They couldn't have loved him into being a different person. Liam rarely spoke about Alex anymore. When he did, it was with sadness rather than anger. He chose hatred, he'd say simply. I chose happiness. And he had. Despite everything Alex had tried to steal or destroy, Liam had built a beautiful life. The twins started kindergarten, riding the bus with their cousins. Watching them board together, backpacks almost bigger than they were, our parents cried happy tears this time. The family had survived, transformed, but intact. Alex would serve his time and probably be released again someday. He'd likely violate parole again, return to prison again, repeat the cycle until age or exhaustion stopped him. But his power was gone. The family had learned to live without fear, to find joy despite his existence. In the end, Alex had been right about one thing. Liam had won. Not through manipulation or cruelty, but by choosing love over hate, building instead of destroying, protecting what mattered most. The twins' laughter echoed through the house, proof that life, real life, had triumphed over Alex's poison. Our family story wasn't unique. Toxic people exist in many families, causing pain and chaos until others learn to protect themselves. But survival was possible. Happiness was possible. Even after everything, love endured. As I finished writing this account, I realized Alex had given us an unexpected gift. In trying to destroy Liam, he'd revealed our family's strength. We'd faced the worst and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. That was its own victory. The children were calling for dinner, normal voices on a normal evening in a normal home. The most beautiful sound in the world.